Hello, and welcome to today's webinar by Achievers, Creating a Culture That Means Business. I'm Huda from HRD Asia, and today's webinar, led by Mark Barling, Senior Sales Director at Achievers, will discuss how COVID-19 has impacted company culture. Mark will be moderating the Q&A session with guest speakers Diane Brokenshire, Global HR Head, All Business Lines at Standard Chartered Bank, Sajjad Parmar, Head of Reward, APAC at eBay, and Deepika Zingade, HR Vice President, Asia Pacific at Swiss Re. They'll share how their organizations have responded to the crisis and how they plan to manage culture in the new normal. Throughout the webinar, you can send in any questions to us just by a button at the bottom. So now, Mark, please take it away.
Thank you, and welcome to this Achievers hosted webinar. It's my pleasure to introduce the fabulous Diane, Sajjad, and Deepika. Diane, can I start with you for a quick introduction? Hello, Diane. Have we got you again? Might move on. Perhaps Sajjad, can I start with you for a quick introduction as eBay, Head of Reward for eBay?
Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I'm Sajjad, working for eBay. I've been with eBay for about 5 years. I head the reward practice, which is compensation, benefits, M&A, analytics, everything. I've been in Singapore for the past, this is my 13th year now. So yeah, it's been a while here, but yeah, looking forward to the discussion. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, pleasure. Good stuff. Thank you. Deepika, if you wouldn't mind, a few words.
Sure. Deepika here. I'm part of the HR function at Swiss Re, and I head the Corporate Solutions Asia Pacific HR team. Been in HR for almost 2 decades now and enjoy doing what I do. Really privileged to be here. In my other endeavors, I'm also a coach externally with several clients and CEOs in Singapore. Live and been in Singapore, a proud Singaporean for the last 12, 13 years now.
Nice, good stuff. And just quickly, Diane, do we have you back? No, that's okay. I'll tell you what, we'll move on. We'll have a good conversation leading up for Diane to come back in. Thanks all very much for joining. It's very much appreciated. You are part of companies with amazing cultures that mean business. For you to be able to share your considerable expertise and experience with our guests today is much appreciated. So let's make a start. Well, what a time we've experienced so far in 2020, and in fact continue to do so. It's genuinely hard to comprehend just what the world has experienced in the first half of this year. The world has had to face one of the perils of being so connected, and in doing so, we've seen some of the best that humanity has to offer, caring for our elderly, caring for our sick and our needy. And from acts that we struggle to reconcile has been born a resolve, I should say, to confront prejudice and hate that we hope can pave the way for lasting change. And believe it or not, we're just short of the halfway mark of the year. The question is now not so much is that it, but rather what else? The events of 2020 have tested us all. Arguably, our employers have had to face the toughest of those challenges. The word unprecedented is surely the front runner for word of the year, but it is hard to find another word that quite captures the impact the events of 2020 have had on organisations here and overseas. From a lot of organisations having to shift to being completely remote, to now trying to imagine what the future office could look like, whilst actually not knowing what the end point of this pandemic looks like. The stress on the organisation and its people is of a type not experienced before. Hi, Diane. We've got you online now by the sounds of it. Hello, Diane. We'll keep moving on. All right. And it is with this lens that we need to be as resilient as we can before we can even think about recovery, where cultural continuity has become incredibly important as organisations have had to transform not just how they work, but where and when. And they've all had to do this in real time. There has never been, and clearly never will be, a pause button for such times. Workers and employers alike have had to change to combat a combination of economic, health, and societal changes. And those changes go right across the board. Changes to processes, Worker health and well-being is now front and centre. And Deepika will be able to share how Swiss Re are responding to these challenges, both for their employees as well as their customers, given the nature of what they do. Changes to living. Less and less cash was being used before the pandemic. Now, the way we live has accelerated us to an online world, and I doubt is ever going to go back. How do companies like eBay respond? Well, Sajjad is going to help share stories from his front line. And lastly, changes to finance. Banks have been the foundations of our societies. They have empowered investment and growth. So what role do they have as we start to emerge from the first peak of the pandemic? And what does their culture need to be to continue to mean business in the 21st century? Diane has many insights to share on these questions, and we hope very much that we'll be able to get to talk to her very, very shortly. And lastly, something I think everyone can well and truly relate to, changes to where we work. I don't know about anybody else on this call, but I must admit, I'm very, very grateful when the kids went back to school. So now is the time to look forward. Creating a culture that means business is not a new challenge. History shows us during times of significant change, organizations with strong cultures survive and prosper because they embrace the challenge. Old rules don't apply now. New thinking is very much required. Cultures that have open leaders, that embrace rather than reject, are the ones that mean business. So I just thought I'd just pause a little bit through this time and just talk about 3 examples that really stand out, I think, across the 20th and into the 21st century of those organizations that have done that. For IBM, they've had to confront change themselves multiple times. Now, that's sometimes of their own making, in fact, something that Louis Gerstner, their former CEO, has said. That the decision on what to do was never based in sentiment, but in what was necessary to ensure a better IBM was left when we were no longer its custodians. Now, even if they were responding to their own issues, they were still always looking forward. Now, that shows that, you know, what started as a hardware company is now almost solely a data company and progressing further and further in that line. For everybody's favorite, Lego, it was the stark reality of continual financial losses in the late 90s that exposed the disconnect between its internal view of self versus the way the world viewed its products. Through confronting these issues head on, and by putting its core reason for being at the center of everything it did subsequently, that is, to play well, Lego has been able to nimbly respond to changes in their customer base, distribution channels, and most importantly, how people continue to interact with their products. And finally, Disney. I think it's a brand name and a company that we all know really, really well. They have a storied culture, one that weaves the original values of Walt Disney into the minds and behaviors of its employees. And by being centered on a mission of storytelling, Disney have been able to actually evolve their business continually to embrace however those stories can be told, whether that's movies, theme parks, content, merchandise, whatever it is. As the channel has evolved, so has the strategy. Who'd have thought once upon a time that Luke Skywalker, I should say, from Star Wars, would actually one day walk proudly alongside Mickey Mouse. So it ends up being that culture is key. The evolution of culture as a subject from the 50s to now shows that the heart and soul of an organization has become a central component of how a business structures itself, not just how it thinks. And that change is now a central tenet of that construct. Organizations that look inward rather than outward will be condemned to lag their competitors. What history ultimately teaches us is that organizations need to be open to adapting, to learning, and to embracing now more than ever. Being open, as we've spoken about it, being flexible, and able to cast off the trappings of comfort for the excitement of the possible. Now, it's an uncomfortable thought for many, but one that I hope inspires you all to think openly about this challenge and to listen now to Diane, Sajjad, and Deepika help us bring to life that through the questions that we've got for them today. All right. So Sajjad, what we might do is start with you and just get your input here onto how's the culture at eBay helped you respond so dynamically to the challenges of 2020?
Thanks, Mark. So I think at eBay, since our beginning in 1995, we call it what we call a mission-driven culture, a purpose-driven culture. I think for us it's the same. And our purpose has never been, has never changed, which is to empower people and create economic opportunity for all. And it's pretty much the guiding force behind everything that we do. If you really think about the crisis at hand, I think, it's never been more upfront for us. We know people are suffering, millions have lost jobs, millions are living off, day to day. And our platform essentially gives the people the opportunity to be empowered and have economic freedom. And so if you really think about, and I'll give you an example in UK alone, in the past few weeks, we've got about 50,000 sellers who came on board, people who've lost jobs, people who felt that there was no other way. And so our culture has allowed us to work with these people to give them that freedom. And in many cases, we've foregone commissions, so that people can really come and stay afloat. It's an equal opportunity platform for everybody. So we don't care who you are, you can come on board. And so the culture for us has allowed us to really work with anyone and everyone and provide that opportunity to everybody. And I think we're very proud of that.
Yeah, and I think that's just an amazing aspect of what eBay can do, isn't it? Is both help the buyer and the seller in that regard, in being able to transform them from losing jobs to creating new business opportunities. I think that is an outstanding place to be. Deepika, from your perspective, and that at Swiss Re, your organisation and the culture enabling you to respond to the challenges so far. Just a quick grab from you. No, just struggling with the microphones there a little bit. I'll tell you what, let's move on to the next question then in that case. Now, Diane, do we have you back online?
I am here.
There we go.
Technical challenges, but it's all good.
That is quite all right. Well, thank you very much for joining us. And maybe just a quick intro from yourself before I draw you in for question two.
Oh, for sure, Mark. So my name is Diane Brokenshire. I head up human resources for all business lines at Standard Chartered Bank. I've been with Standard Chartered actually just about a year. I was on a plane flying from Canada to Singapore a year ago today to relocate from Canada to Singapore and to join Standard Chartered. So really happy to be here with everybody today. And when I was making that plane trip a year ago, I had no idea that the year ahead would be so different and challenging, but it's all good.
Indeed, indeed. So talking about that, what have you and what of your business, what's Standard Chartered in particular, what have you learned about your culture during this time?
That's a great question, Mark. I think one of the things we've learned about our culture, we're on a culture journey, and we have an aspirational culture that we're looking to achieve, which is inclusive, innovative, customer obsessed. And we've been on this journey and doing nudges along the way. And what I think the last couple of months have shown us is we're much further ahead along the culture journey than we realized. And so things like change, we've been able to do change much quicker than we thought. We've had much faster decision-making and implementation. And we have been really changing the ways that we work, introducing agile working into the organization. But we had sort of seen it in pockets. And through the last couple of months, we've really seen it take off. I mean, we're a very large organization. We've got 85,000 employees across 60 countries. We've got a country model, a regional model, a global model. So the matrix can lend itself to be slow and bureaucratic. And the culture that we've been working to has really, we've really been able to break through that, which has been fantastic to see. And just to bring it to life, an example I would share is we had an idea that someone came up with on a Friday night. And the idea was, let's get $1 billion of financing at preferential rates out there in the form of loans, really focused on companies that are providing goods and services to help fight COVID. And an employee came up with that idea on Friday night. And by Monday morning, we released the press release that we were doing this and we were ready to go. And if you'd asked me about that in November, compliance and risk and everything you had to go through, it just wouldn't have happened. And so I think what we've learned about our culture is actually we're much further down the curve. And what we're really thinking about now is how do you capture that and continue to embed that and not lose that as you move forward.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I think we're seeing that now consistently, is that there are many things that are quite negative about this situation, but a key positive that is coming out is showing organizations almost demonstrating to themselves that they can change really, really fast. And that is quite often for the better, because you can just crash through barriers that are either perceived or put in place by the bureaucracy. Deepika, if we've got you back,
Yeah, I'm back here.
Fantastic. There we go. Your culture. Talk to me about how Swiss Re, reinsurer conservative. But what have you learned during your culture at this time that's really quite inspired you?
So it's our vision. Our visions actually, we make the world more resilient, and I think it's not been any more true than at this time when there's so much going on with the world. As such, I think as a culture, we do believe that businesses can expand, and people can thrive because of our own resolve to really move forward, even if there's uncertainty. It's something we do through the work we do with our clients. It's the kind of services and solutions we offer. But I think this year has been a hallmark year because there's been many things going on, right? It's not just the COVID situation. From the start of this year, if you know, you've had bushfires, you've had many cyclones, hurricanes that have been happening. And I think Swiss Re has consciously been at the forefront of how we offer fresh perspectives, pushing on that whole culture internally around solutions that really help clients manage risk and putting capital behind it. So I feel our culture is really served us well. We do believe that as a spirit within our people and externally, we are very unified. We have been supremely fast and fluid, I think, in just adapting to what's happening and helping others as well.
Yeah, nice. That aspect of, as you say, helping the world be more resilient is almost a priceless value at this point in time. Sajjad, let me come to you for this question around the act of leading and leadership more broadly. What do you think's changed at your organisation in response to COVID-19, or if not changed, but really had a spotlight shone on it?
I'd probably say that we haven't changed so much, but I think the speed with which we've tried to work has definitely, I think we've gone better in a way. I mean, if I think about our sellers and buyers, it's, for example, getting sellers on board quickly, giving them the tools, training them. Like I said, as an example, we've got thousands of new sellers coming in because of this crisis. So how do we make sure that they're able to get on the platform fast, work with them, they have all the facilities they need? Similarly, for buyers who are obviously struggling financially as well, to give them the best inventory at the best price. So I think all the decisions around that, the business model, I think we've taken it hopefully to a better level. We've become better at that. I think internally, if I think about the connections we've had with our employees, we've had a culture always where managers and employees connect regularly. And in the current scenario, where empathy and compassion needs to come out even more, we've hoped that we've tried to equip our managers and leaders to connect with the employees, be the leaders that they need to be, and show compassion and empathy. So I think overall, I think things haven't changed, but yes, we have tried to become faster in our decision making so we can help employees and our customers better. Apart from the fact that we've got a new CEO just a month and a half back, and so I think it's been an interesting time for us as a company to see a new leader come in a very weird environment and take the company forward.
Yeah, you mentioned it'd be an interesting assignment, wouldn't it? A brand new CEO on board in this time. You said two words that I just loved in the cultures that do mean business: empathy and compassion. I think that by itself immediately lends itself to those words I said before, doesn't it? That outward view. It's not just about self; it's about others, and being able to embrace that to really help position your business to respond to its customers and needs. Diane, that connection during these times is key. How has Standard Chartered sought to connect with your people throughout this history-defining period?
Connection is key, and it's key at any time, but certainly when you're going through any kind of crisis, any kind of change. And this has been a real learning for us, because we have been more traditional in the sense that we've been more office-based. Leaders are used to having people sitting around them. And we've always, I would say, we've been more on the line of communicating, connecting in the more traditional ways in the past, right? So email communications, town halls, where everybody gets together. And so what we've done in terms of connection right now is we've taken the traditional methods and just ramped them right up. So a lot more communication, a lot more calls, video conferences, written communications from various levels of management. We do have like a weekly executive communication that goes out every Wednesday. which we hadn't, that would have gone out maybe once every couple of months where something meaningful was happening before. So now it's much more regular. And we're changing the type of communication we do to make it short, make it punchy, and really get some humor, but also some authenticity into it as well. So an example would be in the weekly executive communication. One week, our executive team did a series showing them in their home working environment. So from our CEO to our head of wholesale banking to our head of HR, they film themselves in their home with their kids, with their pets. And this is, how things are right now. And so we've ramped up the traditional methods. And then we've seen some other just grassroots pop up. And the big one for us actually has been WhatsApp groups. So there's just been so many chats that have popped up, and they're much more informal. And they're really about sharing jokes, sharing how people are doing, what they're doing on the weekend, not related to work at all. And I think it goes back to that people really need to connect, and connecting at work isn't enough. They want to create that connection with their colleagues outside of work and in a much more informal way. And then the other piece we've really looked at is how do we help leaders? Because it's so much easier to connect with people when you're seeing them every single day in the office. Now, suddenly all of our leaders around the world, or at least, we had 85% of our employee population working from home in May, and our leaders weren't prepared for that. So we shared a lot of tools and guidebooks for how to connect. And it's a lot of the stuff that you see online. You can't go for lunch together, so schedule lunch and have it over a VC. At the end of the day, or maybe at lunchtime, have a VC with your team and invite everybody's kids or everybody's pets and do some fun stuff together to just, work through the current situation. And it's been really interesting, Mark, because what we found is we've gotten a ton of great feedback from both employees and managers saying, we're not face to face anymore, but actually I feel closer than I did when we were in the office. So it's been really fascinating to see how it's worked.
There's an interesting point in underpinning all of that, isn't it? Which is about trust. That we've had to trust because we've had no other choice. We don't see our people now as much in the office, or if at all. And I think part of what, if I'm reading rightly between the lines, is how do we help connect our leaders, but also how do we help say to our leaders that it's you've got to trust, you've got to see this work. Are you seeing a little bit of that as well in Standard Chartered, or a lot of that?
Oh, a lot of that. And that goes back to the ways of working, because there just has to be such a high level of trust to get things done, and to delegate to employees to say, okay, you know what, you guys know the right thing to do, so just go after it and do it, and just report back on sort of progress and how we're doing. So I would say, Mark, that's been the key piece of it. And I think building that trust up has been that personal relationship as well. There's always been that work relationship there, and I think a level of trust. But when you take it to that next level, and now you've met, you've seen somebody's home, you've met their family, you've met their kids, I think that level of trust just got embedded even more. And I think it's made work more interesting for people. And the surveys we've done about how productive are you working from home, we've had really strong results, which tie to what we're seeing happen in terms of the work output that we're seeing for employees. So I think you're bang on. I think trust is really key. Yeah,
nice. From Connection, Deepika, if I can turn to you for this particular question, is around also our people and understanding their emotional and mental well-being. How are you, how is Swiss Re responding to these needs, and what practical tips might you be able to provide to our guests today?
Sure. I think for us, we have actually digitized most of our employee experience for many, many years now. We actually have a formal policy called Own the Way You Work, which has meant that people have been very used to working remotely, choosing work styles that help them manage work and life better, which has meant we've seen lower rates of people really reporting on emotional or fatigue related aspects to us. Having said that, we are trialing a lot of things that are more fun and that bring our people together. So I'll cite an example. We had Swiss Radio go live. So it's a spoof. It's an online music channel that Swiss Re is now put forward, which goes live every Friday. People can plug in. We have our senior leaders talk through with the RJ and sharing a lot of their insights with what's changing in their world as a result of COVID-19. But also fun stuff when you get to nominate songs you love. It's got a lot of positive vibe to it, and people have responded very, very nicely to it as well. So they get to share their own life stories.
How
The
good
other,
is that?
yeah, yeah. We were quite sort of, I guess, innovative when we put it out there. The other piece is we probably are pioneers. We are next month actually going to go live with COVID testing for all our employees, just to assuage any fears if people are wondering if they have the actual illness or not, and to just get that out of the way as a gesture that the company wants to do. And it's purely voluntary, right? So it's not pushy, but it's just there out there. Additionally, I think a lot of our communities, so it's extended this the support to emotionally connect with a lot of the communities we work with externally, who may be helping our employees, right? So we do a lot of charity work externally to support people. And on the mental aspect specifically, just from a wellness perspective, you have to be amazed at the number of plank challenges, the fitness challenges that are going on within Swiss Re right now. People virtually connecting and making sure that we are all working out. We are reporting if there are issues we feel from a fatigue or work life perspective. Plus, Fridays, we've implemented no internal meetings as a rule. So it gives
Okay.
people a lot more time.
Yeah, it's really nice. We're hearing lots of things like quiet hours and no meetings hours and no calls after 5. And I thank you very, very much for that. I love Swiss Radio. I just we've got to get a top 10 list going after this then, and as to what's been the highlights on that. Sajjad, for eBay, again, another global organisation, and very progressive, how has the emotional and mental aspects of your employees' well-being been looked at and looked after?
It's interesting because at the start of the year, we actually wanted to do, double down a little bit more on the emotional aspect. I think in Asia, we've seen, and I think hopefully collectively all of us know, we're not the most sort of vocal people around mental and emotional challenges. So we felt that we've got an EAP program, but I think that's the extent of it. And we felt that we needed to do a little bit more, and then the crisis happened. So I think what we've done is try to reach out to employees through whatever tools and platforms that we have. But I think what we've done is we've worked with our provider to actually hold these sort of sessions with employees where they can come and learn practical tips. To give you an example, one of the things we have noticed is that people are not taking time off, and our leaders are saying that that's not a good thing. Just because you can't travel doesn't mean you can't take a time off. And I know that it's challenging with kids being home and people have to look after them. But the fact that you don't have to attend calls, you don't have to get up in the morning, you don't have to be on a webinar, it's a good mental break. And how do we provide these sort of tips for employees? We have had many employees who are really struggling with having kids at home, and there's kids being off from school, and both the husband and wife working. And so can we make life easy for them by giving them simple tips, making them more mentally resilient? So our work has been more towards humanizing the challenge and giving them and bringing them and sharing the pains together. And that's basically where we've ended up. And we're hoping to do a few more feedback from employees on some of these sessions that have been positive. They like the tips and they would like more help. So we plan to do more of these over the next few months.
Yeah, lovely stuff. That time off piece, I think, is proving to be really important, isn't it? That temptation of just sort of getting out of bed, a bit of breakfast, straight into work, and needing to disconnect from the work to the home life, I think is really, really important. Thank you for sharing. Thank you, Deepika, as well. Diane, back to you, if you don't mind, and just this concept of cultural continuity. It is made strong for us through the office, through the voices and behaviours of employees. Can I start with you around what Standard Chartered are doing to continue to listen to your employees and recognise your employees as we're going through the pandemic and as we transition to a new normal?
Absolutely, Mark. Listening is exactly what you need to be doing at this time. And what we found is it's such a different time. So the needs of employees are quite different. We have been quite traditional, and we've done the annual employee survey. And at the beginning of this year in January, what we said is we really want to move more to that employee sensing. And that looks like, for us, getting and listening to our employees on a more regular basis throughout the year. So shorter surveys, but more often. And we used COVID as our first pilot to do that. We launched a survey out to the employee base in May. Short survey, open for a week, focused on how are you doing? How are you feeling? How are we helping you? What more can we be doing? We got the results back, had the results back in 2 days. And from those results, we were able to roll out some initiatives to cover some of those areas where employees weren't feeling like they were really getting the support they needed. We actually have another survey that's open right now, and that's in recognition of the crisis is still here, but we're moved into another cycle of the crisis. So employees are feeling different now than they did in April or May, as more countries start to come out of lockdown, as some people are returning to the office. So we've got a survey out there now, once again, looking at how are you feeling? What do you think about flexible work? What do you think about returning to the office? So really getting that sense from them about how they're feeling. A couple of other things we do to listen is within our D&I space, we have employee resource groups. And they are fantastic because they really provide that bottom-up kind of ground view about what's happening or what employees are thinking, particularly in groups that sometimes don't have as much of a voice. So we have some really strong ERG groups. One, for example, is we actually have an ERG called ONE, which is Origin, Nationality, and Ethnicity. And with what's been happening in the US right now, they've been holding listening sessions for our employees who are based in the US and the UK. And it's really quite a cool idea. Essentially, there's a conference bridge you can call in. If you just want to call and listen, you can do that. If you want to talk about how you're feeling, if you want to give feedback, you can do that as well. Another avenue where we've gotten a lot of good information. And the final one for us is we introduced a confidential Q&A portal. So at any time, it's kind of like that old suggestion box that used to hang on the wall. So at any time online, you can go into this Q&A portal and you can put a question. And you could also go in and look at the questions that are there and vote on the questions. So that allows us the opportunity to see what's top of mind for a lot of our employees. And then we take those questions and we either answer them on the weekly video conference calls or we provide written answers back. So we're really trying to find different ways to allow employees to have a voice, but also to hear from diverse and different parts of our population. And then in terms of recognition, we've been focused on many different ways. A couple I'll just mention here is we do have a thank you program where employees can send thank yous to each other. And we have a feedback program where you can give feedback on another employee. And we've seen both of these really take off because I think when we talk about connection and we talk about culture, it's been really important for people to recognize each other. And small things like, you know, those IT employees who literally got into their car and drove to someone's house to drop off a laptop. By sending them that recognition, I think it's been really valuable.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, we had something similar to that. Just the acknowledgement of staff, the validation. We had our own CEO driving around the streets of Toronto delivering chairs to our workers. It was to our employees working from home. Just simple things like that. Yeah. Deepika, just really keen to get maybe 30 seconds from you as well. How are Swiss Re listening and recognising their people during this time?
Yeah, I think very similar to what Diane shared. We also have replaced our traditional engagement survey with a COVID survey, right? We did take inputs from that to see what really are the needs of people, what do people care about deeply. And one of the key things that came up was to train leaders to listen better, in the sense that when you ask, really ask from the perspective of checking in and understanding, and less from assuming, right? And that has helped us a lot. I think just being respectful that every individual and their home situations may be different. They have different backgrounds, and therefore we need to be agile in supporting them the way that they want to be supported. So we're running a series called Leadership from Every Seat, where leaders are now going through a lot of different behaviors that they're adopting on how they can manage people better. The other piece I wanted to highlight was also on just how we've pushed the button a lot more on capability building for the future. At a time like this, it's easy to sort of slip back and not build capabilities or push people to upskill in a time of such big transformations. So Swiss Re is actually embarked on a global project where we're looking at just reskilling, upskilling people, giving them a lot more reflection time to think about what will help them from doing their jobs better in the future.
Yeah, okay, nice. It is that you could, some of those, sort of, and I'll refer to them almost as sort of the softer things, the enablement, the training, the development, can slip, can't it, when you're so focused on needing to respond and react to the situation, the pandemic, the work from home, and trying to keep our people engaged. So yeah, really, really nice initiative. Sajjad, let's bring this home with our final question that's on the screen before we turn to audience questions. what's your most significant moment or learning that you're going to personally take away from the first half of 2020?
I think it's fairly simple for me, at least how I've observed and what I've been learning. I think at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is kindness, compassion, and empathy. I think business will grow and they will not grow, and we'll have 10 million other things thrown at us. And what I've been observing, internally in eBay and outside as well, is that I think it's that humanizing that connection. It's to bring kindness to every conversation. Everybody's suffering. Let's be honest, right? In some way or the other. And so, clearly it's not going to go away anytime soon, it seems. So I think only the thing that matters and the learning is to continue that compassion and kindness in every conversation we have, at office or otherwise. And I think to me, that's been my biggest learning and the most important thing I want to take away.
Yeah, really, really nice. Diane, a quick moment for you, your most significant moment or learning so far.
What really hit me is the adaptability of the human race. In December, we were on trips, we were going shopping, we were going to the cinema. And then in a very short time, most of the world was in lockdown. And the human race, we just got on with it. And I just think that adaptability that we have is amazing to me, because our lives changed so quickly. And it wasn't easy, but pretty quickly we adapted to it. And tied to that is that we're all humans. So across the world, we speak different languages, we may look different, we have different cultures, but at the end of the day, we are humans and we have so much in common. And a really quick example, or what really drove this home for me, is China was hit first, and the first thing that ran out in the stores was toilet paper. Move over and the virus hits Europe, the first thing that runs out in the stores is toilet paper. You get to North America, the first thing that runs out is toilet paper. So no matter where you are in the world as a human being, you're going into lockdown and your big fear is, I'm not gonna have enough toilet paper. And I just thought that was so cool.
It is. It's. I think Australia, unfortunately, I think has one of the unfortunate tags of leading the charge for then the UK and America and all the rest of it following. When you sit there and you think, how much toilet paper do you really need? But it turns out we need a lot. Turns out we need a lot, or at least we think we do. Deepika, for you, your most significant moment or learning through 2020 so far?
I think it's brought home the fact that, when governments and people have talked about what are essential services, for me, I reflected on that a lot, saying actually how little do we need, right? And it's been amazing sort of seeing that one of the most important things I missed is conversations. What we miss most is not meeting our friends and people we love and being able to talk to them. So it's reinforced for me that need, that it's a very human need, and it echoes this whole, ethos we have around just connecting more with people. I think the other thing for me, of course, at home was I realized that my husband is now a coffee connoisseur. He can make very different kinds of coffee, which I didn't know previously, and that I can actually get by with actually working out every day. I didn't miss a single day.
Yeah, it is. It's funny. I have such an appreciation, or such a higher appreciation, for what my wife does in terms of what she did, because we're side by side for so long now. I think I love that your husband is taking to become a barista at home. That is lovely. For everybody on the webinar, Diane, Sajjad, and Deepika have put some points down, and we will share these slides and all of the points from the webinar. And just while we pause here, I'm going to just maybe throw a couple of more questions at that, talk really specifically, I think, to some of the things that are hot topics for all HR at the moment. Sajjad, if I can start with you, we have, as it's been referred to now, the great home migration. There will eventually be, potentially, a return to office. How is eBay going about that process? And in particular, is the idea of a hybrid any closer to reality for eBay now, or do you think it's an all back, all off, or somewhere in between?
So I think to your point, I think we will see definitely more work from home for sure. I think where we are is we've taken a market approach. In China, most employees are back. In Korea and Japan, it's 50-50. I think we're also working with government legislation as well to see that we don't overstep. I think where we'll probably end up is to have a hybrid model for sure, which makes sense, allowing people to work from home as need be. I think it's probably going to become a must-have for every company, in my view. You just can't have employees, you can't force employees to work from home or be at the office. So hybrid model it is going to be. And I think we'll leave it to the markets. In some markets, we are just sales and marketing. In some markets, we are R&D. In some markets, we're tech. So I think it'll depend on how the business model evolves as well.
Okay. Yeah, that's neat. And that piece about your culture and meaning business going forward is about accepting that it will look and feel different for different people and different groups. Good. Diane, for you, that question of returning 70 or 80 odd thousand Standard Chartered employees back into an office, how are you supporting your leaders, your employees through that? And does the bank have expectations as to what and when that might look like?
I love this question because this is a topic I'm really passionate about. So I'll try and keep my answer short. But on the first,
please do. Couple of minutes.
Yep. So on the first part, we're being very thoughtful about returning people to work. And similar to eBay, in China and Hong Kong, people have returned to work, but the office looks much different. We have staggered, we're still doing that kind of blue, green, yellow team where not everybody's back in the same day. We've staggered desks, people are wearing masks, cleaning's happening more often. But we're also taking a stand that if you aren't comfortable to return to work, we're not going to force you back to work. So there's that comfort level too. On the second topic, we are taking this opportunity. We have been very traditional. Before the crisis, probably 2% of our workforce worked from home. And we are now hot into an agile project where our expectation is we will have 70% of our employee population being in that hybrid model where they work from home, 5 days a week or 3 days a week, but they're at home or at another location. Another location could be home, it could be a coffee shop, it could be Australia. And allowing people to have that flexibility. I think what's happened in the last couple of months has shown us that we can do it. Before that, there was just way too many excuses. And now that everybody's forced to do it, we have such a great business case and it's really hard to argue. So we are running fast now to really get that and implement it. And we're hoping to have it sort of in place around September, October. And this would be global, but similar, we've never forced anybody to do something. So if your comfort level is coming to the office, that will absolutely be your standard. But we really want to open it up and change. This is part of our cultural change and changing how we go about work and moving from that traditional bank to being more digital, more flexible.
Yeah, nice. Really, it's the beauty of sometimes a catalyst like this is that ability to change without barriers. Deepika, a question from the audience, a couple of questions for you actually from the audience, and we might just have enough time to scrape them in. You talked about capability building, and one of the audience members has asked, what do you mean when you say push the button on this, and how do you see staff development evolving, potentially with some L&D budget constraints? So just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so for us, I think it was always, it has always been a big investment opportunity. We look at it as a huge return on learning that we can evolve, and we have actually pushed a lot of investment also on the digital side into the solutions we offer. So capability building with a view on the future and what we need was always on the cards. What has transformed also is now, I'm probably saying this also with reference to many other firms who may see a big dip, for example, on several expenses that they would usually have had on the OPEX side, for example, travel. And there is that opportunity now commercially to look and rethink and reflect on where could those dollars go now that we have the opportunity. So for us, it was always on the we are seeking now to launch these programs as well as curricula that could be worldwide, whereby people get upskilled.
Okay, good stuff. The other question that's come through for you is the recognition culture pre the pandemic. You were talking about transforming recognition. What kind of changes are you, and they may not be there yet, but what kind of changes are you sort of foreshadowing will occur as a result of this?
I think the world is virtual now, Mark. It's a lot more virtual than it used to be. And with all of these things going online, we are going to see people having or feeling the need that they want to be recognized in manners in which it's possible, right? And where we used to earlier maybe organize meetings in office or call for a town hall and you'd have that public recognition, it's being replaced with a virtual platform. So I think there is going to be an increased need. We are on that journey. We aren't there yet, but we will be taking steps to sort of look at how else can we recognize meaningfully, whether it's through awards that we institute, for example, even catapulting people to do more marketing online, how well do they speak about the firm, and our objectives and accomplishments externally, for example, can now be tracked a lot more. So we are investing in that front where recognition comes to you for different things that you can accomplish online.
Good stuff. And of course, if you ever need a good partner to help to make that transformation, I'm sure we can. I'm sure I can make a couple of calls and get you a nice online platform that helps recognise people wherever you are. People, that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you so much for to Diane, to Sajjad, to Deepika. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much to our audience members who've joined us today and had some good questions asked. Nahuda, it is back to you.
Thanks, Mark, for that. And thank you, speakers, for the valuable insights. It's nice to know that despite social distancing and lockdown measures, all three leaders highlighted the importance of this lesson, which is keeping personal connections and maintaining them, whether we're offline or online. Okay, so if you've registered for the webinar, you will be receiving a link to it, a recorded link to the webinar. So thanks again for tuning in and hope to catch you guys next time. Bye.